from the radio station that means news, AM 107, WINA.
I'm Tom Osina with a special report on Referendum 82. Voters in Albemarle County will decide May 18th whether or not to approve a revenue-sharing agreement with their neighbor, the City of Charlottesville. The agreement was first announced February 1st, 1982, after 5 months of closed-door discussions. Charlottesville Mayor Frank Buck gave the highlights of that agreement.
Under the proposal, the city will give up its rights to annex any county territory, with the minor exception of the land in Penn Park, already owned by the city, for the duration of the agreement. In return, both jurisdictions will agree to contribute each year a fixed portion of their real estate tax revenues to a pool which would be divided and returned to the city and the county on the basis of a formula that evaluates the relative needs and effort to meet those needs of the two jurisdictions by taking into account their populations and true real estate tax rates.
County officials project that if the agreement is approved by the voters, Charlottesville would receive almost $1.3 million in the 1982-1983 fiscal year. And it is estimated that the real property tax rate in the county would be raised 10 cents, just to make up that transfer from the county treasury. Negotiators for the county, Supervisor Chairman Jerry Fisher and Supervisor Tim Lindstrom, insisted that this sharing of tax revenues would be less expensive than an annexation court battle and subsequent loss of part of the county's tax base. However, in the subsequent weeks which followed the presentation of these cost projections, there has not always been agreement on their accuracy. I'm Tom Osina with a special report on Referendum 82. Though late in servicing in any organized fashion, opposition to the revenue-sharing agreement between Charlottesville and Albemarle did form. Headed by John Billy Williams, who served as chairman of the Board of Supervisors until his home was annexed by the city in 1963, the group had expressed misgivings that the agreement lacked a termination date. County Sheriff George Bailey supported cooperation with the city, but not for an indefinite period of time.
I think it would be good for the city and good for the county if we reach some kind of negotiation. I think it would be good for Senator Mickey. That's what this bill is all about. But then Charlottesville is not being reasonable. Not at all to have this perpetual nature to it. If they come in here, even if they'd say 30 years or 50 years, it would be something, we'd have a target date. But from now to eternity, there's no target date at all.
Williams, who helped to reduce the amount of land the city actually annexed in the early 60s, told reporters that his group would defeat the measure by contacting suburbanites.
We do expect to contact through radio, newspaper, and correspondence, people in the urban area of the county. I think there's very little question how the people in the rural area will vote, but in the urban area is what we'll be pushing for in this particular case.
When Williams first unveiled the membership of the group opposing the revenue-sharing agreement, there were 5 former county supervisors. By the time the referendum rolled around, his group had been joined by 4 other former supervisors, a former county executive, and a former county engineer. I'm Tom Osina with a special report on Referendum 82. When the proposed revenue-sharing agreement between Charlottesville and Albemarle was announced in early February, it had only the support of most of the county's supervisors and city councilors. Several of the supervisors, particularly Chairman Jerry Fisher, began to crisscross Albemarle to explain the proposal. While individuals expressed support for the idea, it was not until late April that a group formed to actively campaign for the agreement's passage in the May 18th referendum. Made up of a variety of community, business, and political leaders, the group called itself SAFE, for Stop Annexation Forever. Spokesman Tony Iachetta, a former supervisor and negotiator of the agreement, explained that passage was needed because of the consequences of the alternative annexation.
I think this is best for their pocketbook. I don't think there's any question about it. If you look at the annexations of the past, they've always cost counties money, and the annexation legislation favors cities. It's designed to favor cities. It's designed to help cities grow at the expense of counties. And I don't think you ever make up the loss.
Albemarle County Democratic Party Chairman Bruce Rasmussen, also a founding member of SAFE, tried to point out to rural citizens the cost they would bear if the agreement was defeated.
I live in Ivy. I am not subject to being annexed unless the world went absolutely crazy. But the way I look at it, if annexation were to occur, those of us that are left in the county are going to be paying higher taxes than we otherwise would be.
This pro-revenue sharing group was joined before the referendum was held by a variety of groups, including the League of Women Voters, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Blue Ridge Home Builders Association. I'm Tom Osina with a special report on Referendum 82. Despite the fact that Albemarle supervisors helped to negotiate the proposed revenue-sharing agreement with the city, not every board member supported it. Whitehall District Supervisor Joe Henley, a farmer from Crozet, announced his opposition soon after details of the agreement were announced in February. But unlike some opponents, Henley said that he believed the best solution was still annexation.
The city has said that they needed room to grow, and I'd be willing to negotiate a transfer of some land that would permit them to grow. I'm not willing to negotiate land that we've put utilities in and have developed.
Henley, who represents the only district which does not share a border with Charlottesville, was quick to point out that the city should not be given everything it had originally indicated it wanted to annex. He pointed out that under current state annexation law, the county could try to get a court to rule the heavily Route 29 North area immune from annexation. Because of business and retail development, that area is Albemarle's major source of tax revenue. And Henley was concerned about the perpetual nature of the agreement.
I'm certainly not going to vote to incur this type of liability on the citizens the rest of our lives. That's sort of what we're doing.
Meanwhile, Charlottesville District Supervisor Pat Cook, who voted to support the agreement, has publicly expressed doubts that the issue will pass in the May 18th referendum. I'm Tom Osina with a special report on Referendum 82. Having negotiated and then voted approval in February, 5 of Albemarle County's 6 supervisors had the task of explaining, defending, and convincing voters of the merits of the proposed revenue-sharing agreement. Board Chairman Jerry Fisher hit the civic group and nightly meeting circuit to drum up support prior to the May 18th referendum. Other supervisors sponsored and held forums in their districts. But only one supervisor, Tim Lindstrom of the Jack Jewett District, called a special news conference in mid-April on the issue. Lindstrom replaced Tony Iachetta on the county's negotiating team at the beginning of the year and was one of the architects of the final agreement. Lindstrom expressed concern that some residents were confusing the merits of the proposal with their opinions of annexation in general.
If this agreement is rejected by county voters, the city will file suit for the annexation of county land. State law gives the city this right, whether county residents like it or not. The annexation law is specifically designed to help cities, not counties. This law gives county residents absolutely no vote on the outcome of the suit itself. Because the city has the right and intent to sue for annexation if this agreement is not approved, debating whether the city needs county money, whether we approve of city spending policies, or whether the law itself is fair is simply not relevant.
Lindstrom had become a prime supporter for an out-of-court settlement with Charlottesville after meeting with his constituents in an open meeting late last year. I'm Tom Osina with a special report on Referendum 82.
You're listening to live coverage of Referendum 82, brought to you by H.M. Gleason and Company on WINA, WQMC, Charlottesville. Live, continuous Referendum 82 coverage from the radio station that means news, AM 107, WINA. Tom Osina will be anchoring with analysis from former county supervisors Tony Iachetta and John Billy Williams. Sarah McConnell and Andy DeKoff bring you the reactions of county leaders. Referendum 82 coverage begins live following CBS News. Next, we are the news and sports leader, WINA, Charlottesville.